Hi everyone, my name is Jesse, and you're listening to another episode of Jesse Likes to Talk. And the topic of today's episode is Love is Blind. See for yourself. I hope you enjoy it. You recently got out of a relationship. You're done grieving what was and what could have been. And after a few days, or a few weeks, or a few months, you start to take your life a lot more seriously than you usually would. You know, you become a lot more focused, you become motivated to not be seen in the same spot, in the same position, should you guys ever circle back to finding each other again. And even if you never wish to see or be with them ever again, you just want to move forward with your life. You want to pursue your dreams, your goals, your passions, and all the things that matter to you. But have you ever asked yourself, like, why the sudden motivation? Where did it all come from? Maybe working hard enough leaves little room for thoughts, for anxiety, or maybe if we succeeded in the end, it would mean that we were always enough and capable of greatness on our own, if you get what I mean. So I've been thinking about this thing recently, and it all goes back to that thing that they say about love. It is blind. But of course, not literally, because love is blind. Love is only blind in as much as it makes a person oblivious to flaws and imperfections that would otherwise be clearly seen if the attraction and affection weren't there. You see, when we're in love, we tend to idealize our partners or romantic interests because we love to see them more than what's on the surface. You see, our brains are very good at making predictions, and when we really like someone, we make these positive predictions about the outcomes of the relationships of their lives. In fact, we start to we start to create a fantasy where we believe more in who they could become rather than in who they are in the moment. And that in itself isn't a good or a bad thing. You get, it's actually the way we tend to work in our relationships. You get, but it's not just about how you view them, it's also about how you view yourself within the context of relationship. And let me explain this. Let's just say the feeling is mutual. They like you as much as you like them. Maybe they're probably just as blind to accept you as you are to accept them. That makes two imperfect people who believe that they are what's best for each other. And you see, such acceptance changes everything. Because now you are not just someone who doesn't shower every day. You're someone who's loved despite not showering every day. You're not someone who chews loudly. You're someone who's loved and accepted despite chewing loudly. You are not just resigned or unambitious. You are still loved in spite of that. You see, you are not just emotionally unavailable or a bad communicator. You are still loved. You are still loved in spite of that. And like I said, that changes everything because it can easily make you fall into a complacency trap. Before I continue, I would like to say that if you love what I do on this channel and the things I talk about, then do not forget to like, subscribe, and share to your friends and families. Your support will not only help the channel grow, but it will also give me reason to talk more about the things that matter to me and maybe to you as well. So yeah, thank you. Now back to the conversation. Sometimes we are too quick to believe that love and affection has erased our flaws completely. But the truth is, it only hides them, or waves them, or chooses to overlook or disregard them even though we know that they are unattractive and intolerable. They are still there, and that is why this complacency can easily translate into comfort. The type of comfort that stops us or hinders us from improving, from growing into better people, not just for our own sakes, but for the sake of the person or the people that love us. Sometimes they don't really say it, they don't demand change outright. But deep down, they desire genuine positive transformation in your behavior, your mindset, your values, your emotionality, your personality, your character, and your discipline. Well, I like to use this analogy to define it. Think of a well tended garden with lots of beautiful flowers. Just picture it in your mind. Bright red, yellow, pink, purple, green, and blue, the colors of the rainbows. These are like the colors of the flowers. You barely notice the weeds, but that doesn't mean that they aren't there. And if left unattended, the weeds will spread out, will outgrow the flowers, overtake the soil, and stifle whatever beauty was left of the garden. That is exactly what love feels like. A beautiful garden. But in this case, you are the gardener. Your flowers are what makes you attractive, what invites others to share in your radiance, your vitality, your beauty. But you have weeds that need tending to. And if you want to sustain that attraction, you must weed out your garden. A little bit of weed won't necessarily disqualify you from love, but the point is to always tend to the garden. Growth is attractive, effort is attractive, and don't let anyone tell you any difference. Strive for it if you must, because these are the things that sustain the attraction long after the novelty of the relationship starts to fade or dwindle. And this is why people often realize too late how far they let themselves go in the relationship, maybe how unattractive they became to their partners, and how they let that comfort, that complacency lead to stagnation. And suddenly they start to pick themselves back up, to work on themselves, to work on unrealized potential, and to tend to that garden that I just mentioned. So yeah, that is just basically the summary of the thoughts. Talk to me. Does this fit with your experience? Drop your stories in the comments below, or do you know someone in such situations? Send this video to them and let them know that they still have a bunch of radiant flowers. All they just need to do is a little weeding. You get a little weeding and they'll be alright. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.